A hidden blueprint for epic stories has been lost for centuries. Ancient authors like Homer and Virgil used a 28-part structure to build myths that still captivate us today, while many modern stories fade from memory. We are about to rediscover this powerful framework, the 28 blueprint of epic reusable story beats. By the end of this, you will possess the complete map to craft narratives with the same timeless power as the oldest legends. Why does one story feel hollow and another resonate for 1,000 years? What is the secret ingredient that turns a simple tale into a foundational myth? How many of these 28 hidden beats can you spot in your favorite story? A quiet village, a familiar routine, a life defined by its borders. This is the ordinary world, the safe and known existence our hero clings to. Then a crack appears. A mysterious traveler arrives with a whispered warning. A king's herald nails a proclamation to the town square post. An old wizard leaves a seemingly simple artifact in your care. This is the call to adventure, the first seismic beat in the ancient blueprint. It is not merely an invitation to action. It is a fundamental challenge to the hero's entire identity. The scholar Joseph Campbell pinpointed this moment as the start of the departure, the instant the potential for a larger life is first offered. And the most human, the most crucial part of this beat is not the call itself, but the refusal that almost always follows. The hero hesitates, they give excuses. They are too old, too young, too unimportant, too scared. Frodo Baggins did not cheerfully accept the One Ring. He wished it had never come to him. This initial refusal is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to the stakes. It shows us the cost of the journey before a single step is taken. It makes their ultimate decision to cross the threshold not an act of foolish bravery, but a hard-won courage, born from the realization that the safety of home is already an illusion. This refusal deepens the central conflict and spotlights the very flaw the journey is meant to cure, a fear of the unknown, a lack of self-belief, an attachment to comfort. What force, then, could possibly be strong enough to push a reluctant hero out the door and into the wild unknown? That sinking dread in the knight's stomach is the true sound of the second beat. It is the refusal of the call, a powerful and necessary pause where the hero looks at the road ahead and chooses for a moment to turn away. This is not a moment of cowardice. It is a moment of brutal human calculation. The hero is weighing the safety of their family, the comfort of their home, the certainty of their small life against the terrifying uncertainty of the mythic world. Joseph Campbell saw this refusal as essential because it proves the journey's worth. If the quest were safe or simple, it would hold no power. Its difficulty is what makes it transformative. Think of Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, who is asked to seek eternal life. His first response is not a triumphant shout, but a quiet preoccupation with the walls of his city, with the duties that tie him to the known world. This hesitation does not make him weak, it makes him real. It forces us to ask ourselves, what would we be willing to leave behind? It is this very fear that makes their eventual courage so breathtaking. Their bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in spite of it. The refusal builds a necessary tension, a question that hangs in the air. If the comfort of home is so powerful, what force in the world could possibly be strong enough to push the hero past the threshold and into the wild unknown? The answer often arrives not as an idea, but as a person. Just as the hero's refusal solidifies, a figure emerges from the periphery of the tale, a guide who seems to have been waiting in the wings all along. This is the beat of supernatural aid, the moment the universe itself seems to lean in and offer a hand. The mentor is far more than a simple teacher. They are the living bridge between the hero's small world and the vast, mythic realm they are about to enter. They carry the scent of that other world on their clothes and the light of its strange suns in their eyes. Athena did not just give Odysseus clever plans, she infused him with the divine confidence to face Poseidon's wrath. Merlin did not merely teach Arthur swordplay, he schooled him in the very nature of power and justice. The gifts these figures provide are never just objects. A glowing sword is not merely a weapon, it is a symbol of the hero's latent potential, now awakened. A whispered piece of advice is not just information, it is a new way of seeing the world. The mentor's very nature acts as a preview of the journey to come. A magical guide like Gandalf suggests a world filled with ancient enchantments and shadowy sorcery. A grizzled veteran like Obi-Wan Kenobi hints at a legacy of fallen knights and galactic conflict. They calibrate the hero and by extension the audience for the scale of the adventure. They assure us that while the path is perilous, no one is expected to walk it entirely alone. This crucial assistance dismantles the final walls of the hero's refusal, replacing fear with a fragile, burgeoning hope. With a trusted guide at their side and a token of power in their hand, the hero at last turns to face the border they once feared to cross. That final step across the border changes everything. The ship vanishes into the mist, the city gates slam shut behind you, and the air itself tastes different. This is the fourth beat, crossing the first threshold, the irreversible moment where the hero commits and the adventure truly begins. It is not a passive drift into danger, but an active, conscious choice to leave the ordinary world behind. The hero has heard the call, refused it, and accepted supernatural aid, but all of that is mere preparation. Here, they finally take the physical step that seals their fate. This threshold is almost never unguarded. It is protected by a threshold guardian, a symbolic figure or force that represents the final barrier of the old life. It might be a literal monster at a bridge, a stern parent forbidding departure, or the vast, empty expanse of a desert. These guardians are not always enemies to be destroyed. Sometimes they are tests, their sole purpose to ask, are you sure? Are you truly ready to let go of who you were? When Luke Skywalker boards the Millennium Falcon and watches Tatooine, his home, vanish into the stars, he is not just changing location. He is shedding his identity as a moisture farmer and accepting his potential destiny. The old rules no longer apply. The hero has willingly stepped from the world of mortals into the realm of gods and monsters, a place where the very fabric of reality is different. This act signifies a profound inner shift, a willingness to be unmade and remade by the journey ahead. What inner change must occur for a character to willingly cross such a line? It is the quiet death of their former self, the courage to trade a known unhappiness for an unknown possibility. And once that line is crossed, there is no going back, not really. The hero is now in the belly of the whale, plunged into a new world with strange laws and greater dangers, where the real transformation is about to begin. Darkness closes in, absolute and suffocating. The hero has been swallowed whole, severed from the world they once knew. This is the fifth beat, the belly of the whale, the moment of final separation where the old self is systematically dismantled. It is not merely a physical location, but a state of profound psychological and spiritual isolation. Think of Jonah in the biblical tale, trapped in the visceral darkness of the great fish, completely cut off from the sun and the sea. His old life as a prophet fleeing his duty is over. In that terrifying confinement, he has no choice but to turn inward, to confront the consequences of his own refusal. This beat acts as a symbolic womb, a place of forced metamorphosis where the comfortable illusions of the ordinary world are digested away. The hero is stripped of their former status, their comforts, and even their name. In modern stories, this might be a prison cell, a remote military boot camp, or the crushing loneliness of a new city where no one knows you. It is any situation of extreme trial that removes all external support systems. The hero can no longer rely on who they were. They are forced to discover who they are and, more importantly, who they must become. This transformation is not a gentle suggestion. It is a necessary ordeal, a brutal but essential preparation for the greater challenges ahead. How does this period of darkness ultimately prepare the hero for the light? It forges a new kind of strength, one born from utter vulnerability. When every familiar landmark is gone, the hero must learn to navigate by their own internal compass. They shed their old skin, and in the absolute quiet of the whale's belly, they hear for the first time the faint, resilient beat of their own true heart. It is from this depth of solitude and trial that the hero will finally emerge, reborn and ready for the road of trials that lies ahead. Emerging from the belly of the whale, the hero does not find a clear path forward, but a gauntlet. This is the road of trials, the sixth beat, a relentless series of tests that forge the hero through direct, often brutal, experience. Picture a knight not simply crossing a swamp, but navigating its labyrinthine channels where every step risks quicks and every murky pool hides a monstrous serpent. These are not random misfortunes. Each ordeal is a deliberate lesson designed to sand away the rough edges of the hero's old self, to break down their weaknesses and force new strengths to the surface. In the ancient labors of Hercules, every seemingly impossible task, from slaying the Nemean lion to cleaning the Orgian stables, was not just a punishment. It was a curriculum. Each labor confronted a different facet of his being, teaching him discipline, ingenuity, and the weight of his own power, systematically transforming a man driven by rage into a legend defined by purpose. The most crucial part of this road is that the hero does not win every time. Failure is not a plot hole, it is the point. A hero who never stumbles learns nothing. When they fail to outwit a sphinx or are overpowered by a guardian, the lesson is not that they are weak, but that their current approach is insufficient. They must adapt or perish. This process forces them to move from being reactive, simply responding to threats, to becoming proactive, anticipating challenges and devising strategies. They start using the gifts from their mentor not as lucky charms, but as tools they are learning to master. Each small victory, each lesson learned from a failure, builds a new layer of confidence and competence. It is a grueling apprenticeship on the move, preparing them not just for any challenge, but for the specific, pivotal encounters that await deeper in the unknown. Just beyond the gauntlet of trials lies a sanctuary, a place of impossible grace. The hero, battered and defined by struggle, stumbles into a sacred grove where a different kind of power awaits. This is the meeting with the goddess, the seventh beat, an encounter that redefines everything the hero thought they knew. The figure who greets them is an embodiment of cosmic love and ultimate wisdom, a radiant presence often appearing as a queen, a deity, or a mystical woman. She represents the universe's nurturing, creative force, the ideal of unconditional acceptance the hero has been unconsciously seeking. This is not merely a romantic interlude. It is a profound lesson in a different kind of strength. Where the road of trials taught force and cunning, the goddess offers wisdom and grace. She challenges the hero's entire worldview, built on conquest and endurance, by presenting a power that is received, not taken. In the Odyssey, the hero's long stay with the enchantress Circe is a perfect example. She is a dangerous and powerful figure, yet her island becomes a place of crucial restoration and hidden lessons. Odysseus learns to navigate a magic beyond his own, to understand a different rhythm of life, and is ultimately guided toward the next, darker phase of his journey home. This meeting forces the hero to practice surrender and trust, to lay down their weapons for a moment and simply receive. It is a necessary balance, an infusion of spirit that prepares them for the sacrifices to come. How does a hero forged in conflict learn to accept such a gift without seeing it as a weakness? This moment of harmony is a delicate, beautiful calm, a deep breath before the story plunges into the deepest shadows of the underworld. But the sanctuary of the goddess cannot last. A new kind of danger now slinks from the shadows, cloaked not in scales or armor, but in velvet and the scent of home. This is the 8th beat, known as Woman as the Temptress, where the hero is offered a crown, a life of perfect ease, and the ultimate comfort of abandoning the arduous quest. It is the temptation of the mundane, a siren song calling them back to a comfortable illusion. The temptress herself is rarely just a person. She is a symbol, a powerful embodiment of the hero's own deepest attachments to their former life. She might appear as a beautiful queen offering her hand and her kingdom, or as the haunting memory of a quiet farm and a simple love. This is not about vilifying femininity, but about dramatizing the universal conflict between the material world and the spiritual quest. It is the allure of the tangible over the intangible, the certain over the sacred. In the Arthurian legends, knights are constantly waylaid by enchanted castles where time stands still. Inside, they are offered endless feasts, soft beds, and adoration, a paradise designed to make them forget the harsh road and the holy grail they seek. This beat is a profound test of commitment. What does the specific nature of the temptation reveal about the hero? A hero tempted by power fears insignificance. A hero tempted by comfort fears the pain of the journey. A hero tempted by a return to normalcy fears the transformation they are undergoing. Resisting this allure is a crucial act of self-definition. It proves that the hero's goal is no longer a vague ambition, but a core part of their identity. They must consciously choose the difficult path of growth over the easy path of stagnation. This victory over the self leads directly to a confrontation with the ultimate parental authority, the foundational power that has shaped their world from the very beginning. A shadow falls over the hero, cast not by a mountain or a storm, but by a single, immense figure who is the source of all law. This is the 9th beat, Atonement with the Father, the moment of ultimate confrontation with the foundational authority of their universe. The figure they face is more than a king or a god. They are the living embodiment of judgment, tradition, and the very rules the hero has been struggling against or seeking to appease. This is the final exam on the road of trials, a test not of strength but of worthiness. The hero does not always slay this father figure. In fact, true atonement is rarely about destruction. It is about reconciliation. It is the hero proving through courage, wisdom, or sacrifice that they have matured enough to understand the burdens of power and are ready to carry a portion of it themselves. Think of Moses standing before Pharaoh, the human god king of Egypt. Each confrontation is not merely a demand for freedom, but a complex negotiation where Moses must learn to wield a divine authority that challenges a temporal one. He must match the Pharaoh's power not with greater force alone, but with an unshakable conviction that forces the king to see him as an equal, a worthy opponent. This external battle is always a mirror of an internal one. The father represents the hero's own deepest limitations, their ingrained obedience, their fear of punishment, or their rebellion against any form of control. To achieve atonement is to finally make peace with that internal authority figure, to understand its purpose, and to integrate its lessons without being dominated by them. How does this brutal negotiation forge a true leader? It forces the hero to accept that power is not a toy for personal gain, but a tool for maintaining order and justice. They stop fighting the system and start understanding how to work within it, or how to change it from a place of respect. Having faced the father and survived, the hero is no longer just a questing wanderer. They have been acknowledged by the highest power and are now irrevocably ready for the apotheosis that follows. A profound stillness settles over the hero, a quiet so deep it feels like the universe is holding its breath. This is apotheosis, the 10th beat, a spiritual ascension where the hero transcends their mortal self and touches the divine. It is not a physical victory, but a moment of supreme understanding, a God's eye view of the entire cosmic tapestry. After the brutal trials and the harrowing atonement with the father, the hero's ego finally dies, and in its place blooms a higher consciousness. They do not just know their path, they understand why the path exists and how their every struggle was a necessary thread in a grander design. When the Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, he was not fighting a monster or seizing a throne. He was engaged in the ultimate internal battle, and his victory was not an explosion of power, but a quiet, irreversible dawn of enlightenment. He saw the endless cycle of suffering and the path to its end, achieving a peace that forever separated him from the fears and desires of ordinary life. This is the core difference between winning a battle and achieving apotheosis. A battle is won against an external force. Apotheosis is won against the internal self, a surrender to a truth so vast it redefines the very concept of victory. From this serene, elevated state, the hero is no longer merely a participant in the story. They have become a force of nature, perfectly aligned with their purpose and finally ready to claim the ultimate prize their journey was always meant to secure. The hero's hands finally close around the cool, smooth surface of the Grail. A deep, resonant hum fills the chamber, not with sound but with a feeling of profound rightness. This is the ultimate boon, the 11th beat, the moment the entire quest has been bending toward. It is the object, the knowledge, or the state of being that holds the power to restore balance, to heal the wounded king, or to bring rain to the parched land. The hero does not simply find this prize. They have become the kind of person who can be trusted with it, forged in the fires of their own trials and purified by their apotheosis. The boon is the physical proof of their transformation. It might be the golden fleece that can restore a kingdom's vitality, the stolen fire that Prometheus brought to humanity, or the simple, shattering realization that the answer was inside them all along. But this moment of triumph is shadowed by a new weight. The boon is never meant for the hero alone. Its power is tied to its return, to its sharing with the community that sent them forth or that suffers in their absence. A grail kept in a hidden temple serves no one. The fire hoarded by the gods leaves humanity in the cold. Why must this ultimate prize always be a gift for the many? Because the hero's journey is never just a personal vacation. It is a social contract. The village, the family, the entire ordinary world has, in a symbolic sense, invested its hope in this one individual. The boon is the return on that collective investment, the elixir that will cure the spiritual sickness that started the quest. To keep it for oneself would be to invalidate every sacrifice, every lesson learned along the road. It would turn the hero into a new version of the dragon they may have slain, a hoarder of power instead of a channel for it. So with the prize finally in their grasp, a new anxiety blooms. The most dangerous part of the journey may still lie ahead, not in the seeking, but in the bringing home. But the bliss of enlightenment casts a long shadow, and its name is home. The hero now faces the 12th beat, the refusal of the return, a profound and deeply human hesitation. Having touched the divine or found a perfect sanctuary, the thought of going back to a world of petty squabbles, dusty roads, and mortal limitations feels like a cruel demotion. Why shoulder the burdens of a broken kingdom when you can walk in gardens of eternal spring? This is not the same fear that made them refuse the call to adventure. That was a fear of the unknown. This is a fear of the known, a deep, spiritual disappointment with the ordinary world they have transcended. The hero has tasted a higher reality and is being asked to return to a lower one. They may feel that the people back home are simply not ready for the truth they carry, that the boon is too pure for a world so flawed. Odysseus, for years, was held not by chains but by enchantment on the island of Calypso. She offered him immortality and ageless love, a paradise that made the memory of his rocky island kingdom of Ithaca seem small and forgettable. His reluctance was not about laziness, but about the sheer gravitational pull of a perfect existence. This refusal asks a painful question. What obligation does a transformed person have to those who stayed behind? The world, however, is not finished with the hero. It has a stubborn way of sending reminders, of pulling on the one thread that can never be fully severed, the thread of duty and unresolved love. The elixir feels heavy and alive in the hero's hands, a stolen heartbeat that now sets the entire mythic world screaming in pursuit. This is the 13th beat, the magic flight, a desperate race against the very guardians of the power they now carry. The hero is no longer a seeker in a strange land, but a thief fleeing a sacred vault, and the walls of the special world itself seem to bend and contort to stop them. Think of Jason and the Argonauts, the golden fleece finally in their grasp, rowing for their lives as the sorcerer King Aeates summons his entire fleet in a fury of vengeance. The pursuit is not a random obstacle, it is a direct and furious consequence of the theft, a testament to the boon's immeasurable worth. But what if the prize was given freely, a gift from a goddess or a wise king? Even then, the journey home is rarely a peaceful escort. The special world, having tested and transformed the hero, often seems to cling to them, reluctant to release a soul it has remade. The path back may be magically barred, or old enemies, sensing the shift in power, may rally for one final, devastating ambush. This frantic chase does more than provide excitement, it answers a crucial question. How do we know the elixir is truly potent? Because the world it came from fights so fiercely to get it back. The hero must now use every lesson from the road of trials not to acquire power, but to keep it. They navigate by the stars the goddess showed them, outwit pursuers with cunning learned from failure, and wield their hard-won courage against the closing jaws of the mythic realm. It is the ultimate test of their integration, proving they can apply their transformation under the most extreme pressure, racing against the fading magic of the special world to reach the border they once crossed in hope and must now cross again in triumph. Even the most enlightened hero can stumble, their newfound strength drained by the relentless chase. Just as the pursuing shadows close in, a rope ladder tumbles down a cliff face, a familiar sail appears on the horizon, or a loyal friend, thought lost, emerges from the trees with a drawn sword. This is the 14th beat, rescue from without, the moment an external savior arrives to pull the hero back from the brink. It is a crucial and humbling reminder that no journey, no matter how personal, is truly a solo endeavor. The hero may have achieved apotheosis and seized the ultimate boon, but the return to the ordinary world often requires a strength they no longer possess, a strength found only in the community they left behind. They might be physically wounded, magically ensnared, or simply so spiritually weary that the final mile home feels impossible. In the Greek myths, the great hero Theseus, after his daring venture into the underworld, finds himself trapped there, unable to escape. He does not fight his way out through sheer force. He is rescued by his fellow hero, Hercules, who descends and pulls him to safety. This is not a failure on Theseus's part. It is a narrative necessity. Why must the myth show the hero needing help at this final stage? Because it completes the cycle of interdependence. The hero ventured forth for the community, and now the community, in some form, must help bring them home. This external rescue bridges the sacred and the profane, the mythic world and the human one. It is the hand that reaches across the threshold, ensuring the hard-won elixir does not vanish back into the realm of legend. It grounds the hero's transcendent experience in the messy, collaborative reality of human connection, preparing them for the final act of their transformation, the crossing of the return threshold back to the world they once knew. The air of home feels thin and strangely silent after the roar of the magic flight. The hero steps across the final border, the return threshold, and feels the weight of the ordinary world settle on their shoulders like a familiar yet ill-fitting coat. This is the 15th beat, the crossing back, and it is far more than a simple homecoming. The hero carries the elixir, but now faces the ultimate test of their transformation, reintegrating the wisdom of the special world with the stubborn realities of everyday life. The journey is not over, it is entering its most delicate phase. The hero has been remade in a world of gods and monsters, but can they live as a changed person in a world of market squares and domestic routines? The home they return to is often not the static place they remember. Time has passed, alliances have shifted, and the wound that sent them on the quest has festered. Odysseus does not find a welcoming feast upon his return to Ithaca. He finds a palace overrun by arrogant suitors, a son he must win over, and a wife who has spent 20 years perfecting the art of cautious skepticism. His first task is not to announce his kingship, but to prove he is still the man who left while simultaneously being so much more. This is the hero's crucible of application. How do they use the patience learned in the belly of the whale to deal with a disrespectful servant? How do they apply the strategic cunning from the road of trials to navigate a courtly intrigue? The ordinary world becomes a final, brutal examination hall, testing whether their enlightenment is a fleeting vision or a permanent change in character. They must learn to speak the language of both worlds, to translate cosmic truths into practical actions that can heal a specific, earthly problem. Their final and perhaps greatest task is to share the wisdom they have acquired, to become a living bridge between the mundane and the magical, ensuring the elixir does not lose its power in the telling. This mastery is not a title bestowed, but a quiet rhythm learned in the pulse of everyday life. The hero who once trembled at a border now walks with an unshakable calm, their feet equally sure on the cobblestones of the marketplace and the polished floors of the temple. They are the master of the two worlds, the 16th beat, a state of perfect equilibrium where the sacred and the mundane are no longer in conflict, but two halves of a single, understood truth. The hero has integrated the journey, carrying the wisdom of the gods into the world of mortals without losing its potency. Think of King Arthur, not just as the boy who pulled the sword from the stone, but as the man who rules from Camelot. He convenes his knights to discuss lofty ideals of chivalry and justice, concepts born in the mythic realm, and then turns to adjudicate a dispute between two farmers over a stolen pig. He speaks both languages, the language of cosmic law and the language of human need, and he knows they are ultimately the same. This mastery signifies a profound psychological wholeness. The internal war is over. The fear that once made them refuse the call, the arrogance that made them resist the goddess, the rebellion that clashed with the father, all of it has been reconciled into a serene and potent self-awareness. They are no longer a visitor in either world, but a citizen of both. So what is the responsibility of such a person? Their very existence becomes a bridge. They have a duty to translate, to make the elusive truths of the special world accessible and applicable to the problems of the ordinary one. A master does not hoard their understanding in a private chamber. They embody it in every action, from settling a kingdom's laws to offering a kind word to a stranger, proving that enlightenment is not an escape from the world, but a deeper, more compassionate way of living within it. This hard-won balance is the only stable foundation from which the final, most generous gift of the journey can possibly be given. A quiet smile touches the hero's lips as they watch the seasons turn, no longer dreading the coming winter. This is the 17th beat, the freedom to live, a liberation so profound it recalibrates their entire existence. The fear of death, that primal engine of so much human anxiety, has been extinguished within them. It is not that they are immortal, but that they have faced the ultimate unknown, the belly of the whale, the judgment of the Father, and have returned. They understand in their bones that life and death are not enemies, but partners in a sacred, endless dance. This is the ultimate personal reward of the entire quest, a psychological freedom that often outweighs the physical boon they brought back. How does conquering this fundamental fear allow a person to live a more authentic and impactful life? Imagine the difference between a leader who governs from a place of paranoia, hoarding resources and suspecting assassins in every shadow, and one who rules with a serene confidence, making decisions for the long-term health of the kingdom because they are not obsessed with their own mortal end. The hero, freed from the tyranny of time, stops postponing their life. They are no longer haunted by past regrets or paralyzed by future calamities. They act with a decisive and compassionate presence because for them, the present moment is the only place that truly exists. This is not a careless recklessness, but a deep, earned tranquility born from the certainty that they have already faced the worst the universe could throw at them, and have been remade in the process. With this unshakable inner freedom, the hero's actions cease to be about personal survival and become purely about service. They are finally, perfectly poised to perform their greatest work for the world, unburdened by the ego that once clung so desperately to life itself. The final, sacred duty of the hero is to open their hands and let the elixir flow. This is the 18th beat, the boon as a gift, the moment the entire arduous journey finds its ultimate meaning. After the magic flight and the humbling rescue, the hero stands before their community, holding the very thing that can cure the blight, end the drought, or shatter the curse. But the power of this object, this knowledge, is not activated by possession. It is activated by distribution. The hero who drinks the elixir alone becomes a new kind of monster, a hoarder of miracles. The one who pours it into the village well, who uses it to light the communal hearth, transforms their personal victory into a communal renaissance. The mythological giant Prometheus did not steal fire from the gods to warm his own private chambers. He delivered it to all of humanity, a gift that ignited civilization itself, knowing full well it would earn him an eternity of divine punishment. His suffering was the price of his generosity, and it is that very act of selfless giving that cemented his story in our minds for millennia. Why does the hero's journey collapse into failure if the boon is not shared? Because the quest was never a personal vacation. It was a sacred contract. The ordinary world, with its quiet desperation and its wounded king, invested its collective hope in this one individual. The call to adventure was a symptom of a sickness in the land, and the hero was the proposed cure. To return and keep the antidote secret is to betray the very world that created the need for a hero in the first place. This final act of giving is what completes the cycle, transforming a solitary adventure into a lasting legacy. It proves the hero understood the most profound lesson of their transformation, that true power is not measured by what you hold, but by what you are willing to give away. The celebrations fade, the songs grow quiet, and the hero is left alone with the memory of the journey, etched not just in their mind, but upon their very body and soul. A deep ache flares in an old shoulder when the weather turns, or a sudden silence in a crowded room can send a familiar chill down their spine. This is the unhealable wound, the 19th beat, a lasting scar that the hero will carry for the rest of their days. It is a permanent, physical or psychological reminder of the price they paid in the special world, a receipt for their transformation that can never be lost. Far from being a narrative flaw, this wound is a crucial source of depth and humanity. It prevents the master of two worlds from ever becoming a detached, untouchable god. The ache in their knee, earned in a fall from a mythical beast, forever ties them to the reality of that struggle, to the moment they were vulnerable and afraid. It keeps them humble, connected to the very mortal frailty they transcended. The classic myth of the Fisher King illustrates this perfectly. A wound in the king's thigh renders him impotent and unable to rule effectively, and his personal, unhealing suffering is directly mirrored by his kingdom, which becomes a barren wasteland. His personal scar and the land's blight are one and the same. How does a lasting wound prevent a hero from becoming arrogant? Because it is a constant, quiet teacher. On days when the hero might be tempted by their own legend, the dull throb returns, whispering a simple truth. You are not invincible. You bled for this. You are still human. This scar becomes the source of their most unique and hard-won wisdom. They understand suffering not as an abstract concept, but as a familiar companion. They can lead with compassion because they remember the cut of the blade, the sting of failure, the taste of despair. The unhealable wound is the hero's most intimate connection to the world they saved, a guarantee that the one who holds the power to heal others never forgets what it means to be broken. A blade meant for the hero's back never comes from a stranger. It finds its path from the hand of a friend, a mentor, the very person who once shared their fire on a cold night. This is the 20th beat, the betrayal by an ally, a wound that cuts far deeper than any monster's claw. An enemy's attack challenges your strength, but a friend's treachery shatters your understanding of the world itself. It is a poison that taints every shared memory, every moment of past loyalty, forcing you to wonder if any of it was ever real. In the legends of King Arthur, the kingdom does not fall because of an invading army. It crumbles from within, fractured by the secret love between Queen Guinevere and Sir Lancelot, Arthur's greatest knight. This is not the simple malice of a villain. It is a tragic web of human weakness and forbidden passion that betrays the sacred ideal of the Round Table. The hero is left isolated, not just physically, but emotionally, their trust broken into pieces. Why does this internal betrayal wound so much more profoundly than any external foe? Because the hero's journey is built on relationships. They leaned on this ally, learned from them, and shared their deepest vulnerabilities. To have that foundation ripped away is to be spiritually disarmed. It forces the hero to stand utterly alone, to find a strength that is entirely their own, unmoved by the approval or support of others. This beat tests their capacity not for battle, but for forgiveness, for understanding the complex, flawed motives that drive even those we love most. Not every hero can pass this test. Some are consumed by bitterness, their quest ending right there in the ashes of broken trust. But for the one who can see the humanity even in the traitor, who can absorb this ultimate sting without losing their own core compassion. A new and profound level of wisdom awaits, forged in the cruelest of fires. The hero's greatest victory can sow the seeds of their most devastating failure. In the flush of hard-won power, with the confidence of a master who believes they finally understand the rules of the world, a single misstep unravels everything. This is the 21st beat, the unwitting crime, a tragic mistake where the hero, often through a moment of confusion, pride, or simple ignorance, commits an act with catastrophic and unintended consequences. They are not a villain acting with malice, but a flawed human being caught in a cruel twist of fate, causing immense harm despite their best intentions. The classic Greek tragedy of Oedipus is built entirely upon this foundation. He flees his homeland to avoid a prophecy that he will kill his father and marry his mother, only to unknowingly fulfill it through a series of tragic decisions on the road. His crime is not one of intent but of devastating ignorance. This beat shatters the illusion of the infallible hero, forcing them to confront their own profound fallibility. How does a hero's unintentional sin make them more relatable and their story more profound? Because it mirrors our own deepest fears, the terror that our best efforts might somehow lead to ruin, that a single moment of misjudgment could haunt us forever. It is a brutal lesson in humility, a reminder that knowledge and power are never absolute. The hero who has mastered two worlds must now face the one thing they cannot control: the cruel, unpredictable whims of destiny. The aftermath of this crime rarely offers a simple punishment. Instead, it ignites a new and more painful quest, a desperate journey for atonement, understanding, or simply a way to bear the unbearable weight of a guilt they never meant to earn. The road ahead is no longer about seizing a prize, but about seeking a redemption that may forever remain out of reach. Smoke and stone dust choke the air as the tomb door seals shut. This is the 22nd beat, the symbolic death and rebirth, the phoenix moment where the hero is consumed, not just tested, in order to be remade. It is a ritualistic end, far more profound than the earlier isolation of the belly of the whale. That was a period of gestation and preparation. This is a full-scale cremation of the ego, a deliberate and often terrifying plunge into the void where every last attachment to the former self is incinerated. The hero does not just endure this trial, they surrender to it, trusting a process they cannot control. In the Egyptian myth, the god Osiris is betrayed, murdered, and his body cut into pieces scattered across the land. He is not merely imprisoned, he is utterly annihilated. Yet from this total destruction comes a resurrection, a reassembly that transforms him into the lord of the underworld, a being of a completely different order. He enters the ordeal as a god of fertile growth and emerges as a sovereign of the dead, his very nature fundamentally rewritten. What is the fundamental difference between the person who enters the tomb and the one who emerges? The one who enters is still clinging to an identity, to a story of who they are. The one who emerges has been stripped of that story. They have faced the ultimate fear of non-existence and discovered that something essential, a core of pure consciousness, remains. This is not about gaining new powers, but about shedding the final, heaviest cloak of the old self. From these ashes, the hero gains a clarity and purpose that is unshakable, because it is no longer based on personal desire or fear, but on a direct understanding of their place in the larger tapestry of life and death. Reborn and purified, they are now prepared for the final stages of their quest, ready to return to the world with a wisdom that can truly heal. Not every great prize is won through honorable combat or sacred trials. Some are simply taken, snatched from under the noses of gods by a clever hand and a quicker wit. This is the 23rd beat, the theft of the Boon, a cunning alternative to the hero's grueling path where the goal is acquired not through proven virtue but through brilliant deception. While the classic hero earns the elixir by transforming their very soul, the trickster steals it because they are smart enough to get away with it. Characters like the Norse god Loki, who constantly swindles treasures from giants and gods alike, or the Titan Prometheus, who outright steals fire from Olympus, embody this subversive route. Their journey is a powerful critique of established power, asking why transformative knowledge or essential resources should be hoarded by an elite few. It champions intelligence over brute force, suggesting that a clever mind can achieve what a strong arm cannot. This path forces us to confront a difficult moral question. If the stolen fire warms all of humanity, if the snatched apples of immortality save a kingdom from plague, do the dishonest means used to acquire them truly matter? The trickster's story argues that the ends can, in some cases, justify the means, especially when the existing system is unjust. Yet this road is paved with its own unique perils. The thief, no matter how clever, rarely escapes the long arm of divine retribution. Prometheus, for his glorious theft, was chained to a rock to have his liver devoured for eternity. Loki's deceptions steadily accumulate into a web of fate that ensnares him, leading to his own brutal imprisonment until the end of the world. Their punishments are not merely for the act of theft, but for the pride and chaos inherent in challenging the cosmic order so directly. How does this alternative journey deepen our understanding of the mythic landscape? It provides a crucial counterpoint, reminding us that transformation can come from rebellion as well as reverence, from a brilliant gamble as well as a slow, sacred forging. The world needs both the tempered hero who earns their power and the cunning trickster who dares to steal it, for both are essential forces in the endless dance between order and change. A profound stillness settles after the last battle, and in that quiet the armor finally comes off. The hero sits alone, and the weight of every loss, held back by the sheer momentum of the quest, comes crashing down. This is the hero's lament, the 24th beat, a sacred moment of grief where the hero weeps not for their own scars, but for the price paid by others. It is the sound of a heart counting its emptiest spaces, the friends who fell, the trusts that shattered, the innocence that can never be reclaimed. In the raw, guttural mourning of Achilles over the body of his beloved Patroclus, we see a demigod brought to his knees by a very human sorrow. His wails are not just for a lost companion, but for a future they will never share, for the unbearable truth that his own pride paved the way for this death. This lament is not a narrative indulgence, it is the story's soul. It prevents the epic from becoming a mere checklist of conquered monsters and seized treasures, anchoring it instead in the bitter soil of consequence. Why is this expression of grief not a weakness, but the hero's ultimate strength? Because it proves their humanity has survived the journey. A hero who feels no loss is a conqueror, not a savior. They have become the very force they set out to defeat. This moment of profound sorrow acts as a crucible, burning away any last vestiges of selfish pride. In fully feeling the cost, the hero's resolve is purified. Their tears water the seeds of a final, deeper purpose, a solemn vow that every sacrifice will be honored, that the hard-won peace will be protected, and that the journey, for all its pain, will not have been in vain. The hero stands at a crossroads where every signpost points toward suffering. This is the trial of the heart, the 25th beat, a devastating emotional ordeal that pits the hero's deepest loves against their most sacred duties. It is a choice with no clear right answer, a moral dilemma designed to shatter simple notions of good and evil. The enemy is no longer a monster to be slain, but a terrible, unavoidable consequence the hero must personally authorize. Imagine a king forced to sacrifice his own child to appease a wrathful god and save his starving people, or a warrior who must spare the life of the villain who murdered their family to secure a lasting peace for the kingdom. This is not a test of courage but of compassion and ethical conviction. The hero's physical strength is useless here, their strategic cunning irrelevant. The only tools they possess are the values forged on their long journey. How they navigate this impossible terrain reveals the true quality of their enlightenment. Has their transformation led them to a cold, utilitarian calculus or to a profound, heartbreaking empathy? The classic story of Iphigenia presents this trial with brutal clarity. The Greek commander Agamemnon, to gain favorable winds for his fleet to sail to Troy, is commanded by the goddess Artemis to sacrifice his own daughter. His choice is a horrifying paradox: to betray his duty to his army or to murder his own child. There is no victory, only a permanent, soul-scarring loss. What does a hero's impossible choice teach us about the nature of sacrifice? It demonstrates that the greatest sacrifices are not of life or limb, but of the heart's own attachments. They require a person to willingly break a part of themselves for a larger whole, to choose a painful truth over a comforting lie. The resolution of this trial solidifies the hero's character more than any battle ever could. It is the final, internal proof that they are ready to lead, to serve, and to bear the invisible wounds that no elixir can ever heal. The throne room is silent, its golden crown resting on a velvet pillow, waiting. Yet the hero's hand does not reach for it. This is the 26th beat, the refusal of the crown, the ultimate rejection of the power they have seemingly earned through blood and sacrifice. In this breathtaking subversion of the expected ending, the hero demonstrates that their true quest was never for a title or a throne, but for an inner sovereignty that no external symbol can grant. They understand, with a clarity born from their trials, that accepting absolute power would be a betrayal of their entire journey. It would chain them to a system of command and control, making them a new version of the rigid father figure they had to atone with, or the distant king whose wound sent them on the quest in the first place. A powerful historical echo of this archetype is George Washington, who, after leading the American Revolution to victory, was offered a crown by those who feared chaos without a strong leader. His refusal to become a king, his voluntary surrender of immense authority, cemented his legacy not as a ruler, but as a citizen who served a greater ideal. Why is the act of refusing power often more transformative than seizing it? Because it proves that the hero's ego has been fully integrated. They are no longer motivated by a desire for external validation or control over others. Their strength comes from within, and their purpose is now aligned with service, not domination. This choice elevates them to a truly selfless plane, ensuring their legacy is one of wisdom and liberation, not the brittle authority of a tyrant. It affirms that the greatest power a person can ever possess is the freedom to consciously choose their own path, unburdened by the gilded cage of a crown. The true hero builds a throne not for themselves, but for the principles they fought to protect. This is the 27th beat, the founding of a new order, the moment the hero's personal journey transcends into a permanent legacy that will guide society long after they are gone. Having refused the crown, their focus shifts from wielding power to encoding the wisdom they earned into the very fabric of their world. They do not command, they inspire. They do not rule, they architect. King Arthur, having mastered the two worlds of mortal strife and divine ideals, does not simply sit on a throne. He establishes the Round Table, a revolutionary political and spiritual system where every knight, regardless of birth, has an equal voice. This new order is a direct manifestation of his core lesson. that true strength is found in unity and justice, not in solitary might. Similarly, Moses descends from Mount Sinai not with a personal treasure, but with the 10 Commandments, a foundational legal and ethical code that would shape a civilization for millennia. His arduous journey through the desert and his direct encounter with divine authority culminate in this gift of structure, a framework designed to prevent the very chaos and oppression he helped his people escape. The nature of the new order is always a perfect reflection of the hero's most hard-won realizations. A hero who learned the cost of betrayal might found a court built on transparency. A hero who overcame a great fear might establish a school dedicated to courage. This act of creation is the ultimate expression of sharing the boon, transforming a personal elixir into a communal wellspring. It is the hero's true immortality, ensuring that the story does not end with their last breath, but becomes a living, breathing force that continues to shape the world, generation after generation. The torch feels lighter in your hand as you pass it to the next. This is the 28th and final beat, the cyclical return, the moment a weary hero looks into the eyes of a new generation and sees their own long-vanished reflection staring back. The great story is not ending, it is resetting. The world, forever wounded, will always summon new monsters and demand new healers, and the call to adventure will echo once more down a different road. The hero who once crossed the first threshold with trembling hands may now become the steady figure of supernatural aid, the mentor who waits in the wings for the next reluctant soul. In the final pages of The Lord of the Rings, as Frodo sails into the West, the story does not close. It settles on the shoulders of Samwise Gamgee, who returns to the Shire not as a mere gardener, but as a mayor, a father, a quiet guardian who now understands the weight and the wonder of the wider world. His journey is complete, but the cycle of stewardship he embodies is eternal. Why does this never-ending story feel so deeply comforting? Because it assures us that heroism is not a singular, unrepeatable miracle, but a latent potential within the human spirit, ready to awaken in any age. It transforms an ending from a full stop into a semicolon, a promise that the map you have just learned to read will guide countless more travelers long after your own footsteps have faded. The blueprint is complete, and its final, most beautiful lesson is that your own story is but one vital chapter in an epic that has no end. These 28 pillars have stood for millennia, supporting the weight of our grandest tales. You now hold the complete map, not just of a plot, but of the human spirit's own journey from a quiet village to the throne of the gods and back again. This is the ancient language of transformation, the grammar of growth that gives myths like the Odyssey or the Epic of Gilgamesh their timeless power. They feel eternal because they are built on the bedrock of our own psychological struggles, our own fears, and our own deepest hopes. For any writer today, this blueprint is not a cage of rigid rules, but a liberation. It is a deep well of inspiration, offering a proven structure upon which you can build worlds that are entirely your own. Knowing these beats allows you to craft narratives that resonate on a primal level, connecting with an audience not through clever tricks, but through profound, shared truth. Your story might be set in a distant galaxy or a quiet suburban street, yet it can hum with the same fundamental power as the oldest legends if it walks this ancient path. So the final question is not if you will use this map, but which uncharted territory you will explore with it. What epic is whispering to you from the shadows, waiting for you to give it the structure it needs to live? If this journey through the heart of story has sparked an idea, we would love to hear which of these 28 beats resonates most deeply with you. Share your favorite in the comments, and if you are ready to continue exploring the secrets of narrative, subscribe for our next adventure. the next great myth does not lie in a forgotten tomb. It is waiting to be written, and the pen is in your hand. Our modern stories often feel like fast food for the mind, consumed quickly and forgotten even faster. We live in an age of narrative shortcuts, where the intricate 28-beat blueprint was gradually abandoned not because it failed, but because our culture changed its priorities. The industrial engine of Hollywood fell in love with a streamlined 3-act structure, a simple and reliable template that could be replicated and sold with predictable efficiency. This system works for producing content at a breakneck pace, but it often lacks the soul depth of the ancient map. Compounding this, our collective attention span has been fractured by 1,000 digital distractions. A slow-burning character transformation spanning 28 stages can feel like a luxury when viewers demand immediate payoff and constant stimulation. We began to favor the gritty, morally ambiguous anti-hero, deconstructing the very idea of a noble journey, and in our rush for novelty, we mistakenly labeled the timeless archetypes as tired cliches. Yet the stories that truly stick with us, the ones that become part of our cultural DNA, have always secretly followed the old roads. The epic sweep of Star Wars is a textbook journey through the call to adventure, the meeting with mentors, and the atonement with a father. The Lord of the Rings meticulously walks its hobbits through the belly of the whale, the road of trials, and the ultimate refusal of the return. They feel foundational because they are built on the same psychological foundations as the myths of old. So what profound understanding did we trade for speed and subversion? We lost the patient wisdom that a hero is not born, but forged through a long and difficult process, and that an audience's deepest satisfaction comes not from a simple victory, but from witnessing that entire transformative arc. Recognizing this cultural blind spot is our own call to adventure, an invitation to reclaim the narrative tools that build legends, not just content. A corporate boardroom replaces the throne room, its polished table a glacial plane of judgment. This is the practical magic of the ancient blueprint, its power not in recreating mythic landscapes, but in translating their psychological functions into the world you know. Let us take the 28 beats and weave them into a modern story, a tale about a tech CEO named Aris, whose company is teetering on the edge of collapse. The call to adventure is not a herald from a king, but a leaked environmental report that proves her company's core technology is poisoning the water supply. Her refusal of the call is a frantic internal memo, dismissing the data as alarmist and prioritizing shareholder confidence. The mentor, her supernatural aide, is not a wizard but a retired engineer, a woman who shows her blueprints for a forgotten, clean energy design her own father had suppressed decades ago. Crossing the first threshold is the moment Aris secretly diverts R&D funds to pursue this forbidden project, knowingly betraying her board's directives and stepping into the uncharted territory of a corporate insurrection. The belly of the whale is the sterile isolation of a hidden lab, where she is cut off from her executive team, her public image, and every comfort of her former power. The road of trials is a relentless gauntlet of failed prototypes, industrial espionage, and the constant threat of discovery by her own board of directors. Each setback is a lesson, forcing her to shed her identity as a mere profit-driven executive and learn the language of an innovator. The meeting with the goddess could manifest as a partnership with an indigenous community, whose ancient wisdom about the land provides the final, crucial insight needed to stabilize the reactor core. This is not a romantic encounter, but a profound lesson in receiving a different kind of knowledge, one based on harmony rather than extraction. The woman as the Temptress is the lucrative buyout offer from a rival conglomerate, a chance to abandon her risky quest, sell the patents, and retire in unimaginable wealth, leaving the environmental problem for someone else to solve. Her atonement with the father is the climactic confrontation with the corporate board, the living embodiment of the old, destructive system she once served. She does not defeat them with force, but by presenting an irrefutable business case for her new technology, proving her worthiness not as a rebel, but as a wiser, more responsible leader who understands the true cost of their legacy. Her apotheosis is the quiet moment she realizes her goal has shifted from saving her company to saving the ecosystem it harmed, a fundamental reordering of her purpose. The ultimate boon is the activated, stable cold fusion reactor, humming with silent, limitless power. The magic flight is the desperate race to secure the patents and protect the prototype from the very corporate raiders who once tempted her. The rescue from without comes from her own junior engineers who rally to her side, providing the final pieces of code needed to lock the system down, a reminder that she is not in this alone. She crosses the return threshold by walking back into her company's headquarters, not as a disgraced CEO, but as the architect of its future. She masters the two worlds by learning to speak the language of both Wall Street and environmental science, proving that profit and planetary health are not mutually exclusive. Her freedom to live is the liberation from the fear of failure, allowing her to lead with a calm decisiveness. The boon as a gift is opening the patent to the world, ensuring the technology becomes a public utility, not a private weapon. The unhealable wound is the permanent estrangement from her former mentor and father figure on the board, a personal loss that keeps her humble. The betrayal by an ally comes when her chief financial officer, fearing the collapse of their stock price, attempts to sabotage the public launch. The unwitting crime might be the discovery that the reactor's core element, while clean, is sourced from a fragile, remote region, unintentionally creating a new environmental scramble. The symbolic death and rebirth is her decision to voluntarily step down as CEO to lead a global oversight committee, allowing her old identity to die so her mission can live on a larger scale. The theft of the Boon, a trickster variant, could see a rival company stealing her initial data, forcing her to outmaneuver them with legal and ethical ingenuity she once would have considered beneath her. The hero's lament is her private grief for the careers and relationships shattered by her relentless pursuit. The trial of the heart is her choice to protect the land of the indigenous community that helped her, even if it means delaying the global rollout and condemning millions to longer reliance on dirty fuel. The refusal of the crown is her turning down the chairmanship of the new Global Energy Authority, knowing true change happens on the ground, not in a ceremonial seat. The founding of a new order is the international treaty and open source platform she establishes to govern the technology's use. And the cyclical return is the final scene, years later, where she mentors a young, idealistic engineer who has just discovered a flaw in the system, passing the torch and beginning the story anew. The blueprint's function remains identical to that of the Odyssey, only the set dressing has changed. By understanding the psychological purpose of each beat, you can disguise them in any genre, making the ancient journey feel as surprising and urgent as tomorrow's headline.